I'm looking at the clock to see what time it is, because I'm guessing Ben's heard me talk before, because he reminded me again before I got up here, I've only got 5 minutes. I want to talk for just a moment about reflection. Not probably a surprising topic considering the time of the year, because it is a time of year that we often do this. Corporations do it. People do it. We take this opportunity as we turn the page on a year to look back and see our accomplishments, our failures, and perhaps set some goals for the coming year. It should be no surprise to anyone that the Bible encourages this kind of reflection among the Christian. We could clearly take far more than 5 minutes to look at the passages in the Bible that talk about the need for self-examination, and certainly from a biblical perspective, the beginning of the year is not the only time that Christians should reflect upon their lives and who they are and how they live. But because this is a topic that is clearly on people's mind at this time of year, I wanted to take a minute to consider two thoughts as relates to our goals in reflection. First, in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and in verse 18, the Apostle Paul writes, "But we all with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image, from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord." The first thing we want to do is make sure that we are reflecting on the right things and that we have the right image in mind. I work for a large bank. It would do no good for us at the end of the year to compare our financials and our goals and our accomplishments to a small startup in the advertising industry. Why? Because they have nothing to do with each other. They have nothing to do with their goals and ambitions and intents and what they ought to have accomplished or not have accomplished. It would be wrong for me to look at to say, I'm going to look at the end of the year and say, okay, I need somebody else's financials, or I need somebody else's weight loss, or I need somebody else's whatever to look at this year. Those are not the goals. We as Christians, what should we be looking at? What should we be reflecting on? In this passage, it says that we're all reflecting on the glory of the Lord. When we look in the spiritual mirror, the image we ought to be looking at is Jesus, and seeing how we compare to that image. It's the only image that matters as we reflect upon ourselves and upon our lives. But the second thought that we have is in James 1, verses 22 through 25. A familiar passage, but one worthy of consideration at this time. "Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does." It does us absolutely no good to look at the image. It does us absolutely no good to reflect. Even if we have the right image, say, okay, I'm looking at Jesus. I'm looking at who I need to be. I'm looking at what I need to be. And then walk away and do nothing about it. James says it does no good. It's just like a person looking in a mirror, seeing the blemishes, seeing the things that need to change, and then walking away doing nothing. As I stated before, the Christian has many opportunities and many obligations of times when we need to reflect and when we need to consider and examine who we are. But let us not overlook this opportunity. Do not just reflect, not just to consider whether or not we measure up to the fullness of the stature of the measure of Jesus Christ, but to take an opportunity to make changes, to do things differently, to grow into the image that we ought to be. The first step of that is to become a Christian. If you're here tonight and you've either never become a Christian, or if you're here tonight and you need to renew that image, you need some help, you need some prayers to become what you ought to be, we encourage you to come as together we stand and as we sing.